Okay, we will now begin the Special Reclamation District 900 Board meeting for June 30th, 2022, pursuant to Government Code Section 54953 as amended by Assembly Bill 361. And due to the state of emergency declared by the governor on March 4th, 2020, members of the Reclamation District 900 Board of Trustees and staff will participate in this meeting via teleconference to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Members of the public may watch the meeting via YouTube at the Reclamation District 900 website. Next, we will go to item 1A, presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of the district. The agency is prohibited by law from discussing issues not on the agenda brought to them at this time. Mr. General Manager, do we have any requests to speak by the public?
Blake, that would be you. And we do not in the waiting room anyways.
Nope.
Yeah,
All right.
I can't see the waiting room, so.
All right, thank you. Next is our consent agenda item part 2, items 2 through 5. Are there any requests to pull an item? If not, are there any
No.
requests for public comment? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move the recommended
it.
action.
A second.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Trustee Ledesma moved and Trustee Orozco seconded. You could please take the roll.
Trustee Ledesma,
Yes.
Trustee Orozco,
Yes.
President Guerrero.
Yes, thank you. This motion is approved. Next is a regular agenda. Part 3 is item 6, a public hearing to receive comments and consideration of resolution 22-06-02, adopting the initial study and mitigated negative declaration for the Blacker Canal Bank Stabilization Project in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act. And who will be doing a presentation on this?
So that will be me. Now that you've approved the consent agenda, the interim assistant general manager, Fabian, myself, will be doing the presentation for the Blacker item. All right. Do we want to open the public hearing before or after my presentation?
I'll open it up after. And are there any requests to speak for this today?
There are none.
Okay, we'll have your presentation and then I'll open it up if there are no comments or questions among the trustees.
Okay, and Blake, can you open up the participants panel on your screen and let me know if there's anybody that ends up in the waiting room, because I'm going to turn to my presentation.
Yes, I see it. I've got it open.
All right, thank you. All right, good evening, President Guerrero and trustees. The objective of this report is to present information to the RD Board of Trustees and to hold a public hearing. There you go. Blake, you had some background noise there. All right. Again, the objective of this report is to present information to the Board of Trustees and to hold a public hearing to receive comments and then approve a resolution 22-06-02 to adopt the initial study and mitigated negative declaration for the Blacker Canal Bank Stabilization Project in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, which I'll refer to as SECRA from this point forward. And also the secondary purpose of this report is to prevent sufficient information to the board to approve the Blacker Canal Bank Stabilization Project 90% plans. Brief background, the Blacker Canal project is located along Blacker Canal and runs in an eastern and east-westerly direction between Jefferson Boulevard on the eastern side and the district's main drain canal on the western side. The total project area is about 4.5 acres. And over the years, the canal banks has sloughed and eroded, and the ability to access the site has been lost in some locations. And it's resulted in additional issues with being able to maintain or deal with vegetation management. So restoration of the canal to its original design and flow capacity is critical in order to maintain proper drainage, to reduce the risk of flooding for the community, and for maintaining access for continued O&M of the system. The bank stabilization is also necessary to arrest this erosion and sloughing that is now encroaching on and threatens to damage private property. So for the environmental review process, the district filed a notice of intent to adopt the MND, the Mitigated Negative Declaration, on February 24th of 2021. And on February 28th, submitted the ISMND to the State of Office of Planning and Research, otherwise the State Clearinghouse. It was available for public review for a period of roughly 30 days from February 24 through March 26 of 2021. It was also accessible on the district's website, and a paper copy was available at the Arthur F. Turner Community Library here in West Sacramento. The district held a virtual public meeting on February 18th, 2021, and presented the ISMND at a regular meeting of the district. At the meeting, staff and our consultant, Bowl Environmental, provided a summary of the project description and findings related to potential impacts and also the proposed mitigation measures. Following those meetings, written comments were received from a group of residents on March 12th of 2021. And then oral comments were also provided and received from the same residents at a regular district board meeting on March 18th of 2021. Former General Manager Tim Mallon met with some of the concerned residents who provided comments in the spring of 2021. And I, in the capacity of interim general manager, also met with the same residents along with our environmental team outside their home, in their backyard actually, to view the project and to listen to some of their concerns related to vegetation and habitat. The public review period ended on March 26. However, the district accepted comments from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife after the review period ended. And the comments have been compiled in a response to comments with responses to each substantive comment. And that summary was included as an attachment in this staff report that was before you tonight. I also wanted to note that the general manager, Blake Johnson, sent a courtesy letter to the group of residents 2 weeks in advance of this meeting to inform them of the item before the board tonight for consideration to adopt the ISMND. And following that letter, the residents sent an email to the general manager on June 27th. And I'll briefly summarize that email. They introduced themselves to Mr. Johnson and asked to have a working relationship with him as the new general manager in order to make the Blacker Canal project a success and to maintain and enhance vegetation and wildlife that currently use the canal. They asked for and requested a schedule of the next steps, including what the construction schedule would be. And they also want to ensure that a certified arborist would evaluate the trees at their house and along the canal to ensure that they're pruned safely as possible to maintain the health and so forth. They also offered and asked how they may be able to help or assist as property owners adjacent to the canal to assist with the project and whatever effort the district undertakes, both to maintain the habitat and such. And Mr. Johnson replied that he'd be more than happy to work with them, looks forward to meeting with them. He provided the next steps, including the construction schedule, which we anticipate to be in the spring of 2023. But certainly if we get our environmental regulatory permits earlier this year, we would certainly inform them that the construction may proceed a little earlier. And he assured them that we would have a certified arborist. So I just wanted to let the board know that there was a little additional information, but all positive just before this meeting. Also wanted to point out that this project received a grant award of funding from FEMA under their Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. That was an extremely lengthy process, over 2 years. And the grant award was finally made in December 2021, which is one of the reasons why the project had sort of been on hold. And we are now able to move forward to wrap up CEQA, bring the item before the board, and then move forward with the regulatory permits. But during the application process with FEMA, they're the lead agency providing the federal funds, and they made a determination that the project is covered under a programmatic environmental assessment, and then they issued a finding of no significant impact. Now, a little bit about the project description. The western limit of the work extends from the main drain canal to Linden Avenue. And in this area, the bank stabilization activities will occur on both the right and left banks. And the eastern limit of work extends from Linden to Jefferson. And in this area, the stabilization work is limited to the left bank only. 3 segments along the canal will be excavated to facilitate installation of the gabion baskets, which is essentially a tiered wall, and then to rehabilitate the eroding bank. And then the gabion walls will be backfilled and also compacted with native dirt. There's going to be a precast box culvert that will be installed at the intersection of the canal and the Blacker Canal and the main canal to the west. And there will be some riprap slope protection will be installed at 5 other locations along the canal where no gabion baskets are to be installed. And really the gabion baskets are really to provide a solid, not very sloped barrier to arrest erosion and allow for the O&M corridor to be properly defined and maintained. Vegetation removal activities are going to be conducted as needed and really consists mainly of removing hardstem, bulrush, and broadleaf cattail and woody debris that is currently in the canal constricting water flow capacity. And then some vegetation removal will also occur along the O&M corridor where it's really become overgrown. And in fact, there are some trees that have either volunteered or been planted by some of the residents behind their backyard, like literally in the O&M corridor. So some of those will have to be removed in order to maintain access for ongoing O&M. So the project has been designed to minimize temporary and permanent impacts to jurisdictional waters and sensitive habitat to the maximum extent practicable. As I mentioned, the total project area is a little over 4.5 acres. And the proposed project anticipates about 0.146 acres of permanent impacts. And that's really because of the gabion walls and the box culvert, and about 1.4 acres of temporary impacts. And that's the vegetation removal, woody debris removal, and also the staging area or staging areas that will occur during construction. And then the temporary effects will be recontoured and revegetated to pre-construction conditions immediately upon the completion of the project. Construction would be during the summer months only from July through September to minimize the amount of flow and water that we might have to deal with and groundwater present, as well as it provides the window that's necessary to not impact the giant garter snake. So again, we expect it to begin in July of 2023. There's a remote possibility that it could occur this year, but I'm not counting on that. Dewatering will likely occur and is actually required under the U.S. Fish and Wildlife direction, but it will occur prior to and during construction as needed. And again, that depends on a lot of environmental factors, weather, and so forth. So at the close of the public hearing and any testimony that anybody attending may provide, staff recommends that the board consider the comments, adopt resolution 220602 to adopt the initial study and mitigated negative declaration in accordance with CEQA, and then direct the general manager to pay the fees and file the notice of determination with Yolo County and take all appropriate actions in furtherance of the CEQA process and approval, and also approve the Blacker Canal project and the 90% plans. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Any questions among the trustees?
No questions.
Just have a couple of questions. So it sounds like a lot of material that will be needed for getting this work done. As far as traffic and managing that to get the material in and maybe taking some of it out, what would that look like? I know it's further down the road, but
We're anticipating using Jefferson Boulevard to Linden, and then accessing the canal. Well, if I had a map, it'd be a lot easier, and then accessing the canal from Linden Road. And behind, you know where the Montessori School is?
on Linden Road.
Yeah, and there's a vacant lot. There's a vacant lot next to it.
Yeah,
That's where the staging area and expected ingress and egress will occur. And then we can also, as an alternate path, access the western edge through the district's O&M corridor along the main canal. But the contractor will be providing with the bids their proposed traffic plan.
okay,
And so we'll know more once the bids come in, but that's what we anticipate.
okay. I can reserve the rest of my questions till then. Though you,
Could I actually piggyback on that one as well,
sure, go ahead.
Madam President? Thank you. Sorry, Greg, do we anticipate like a good amount of like trucks? I mean, what particular time and for span of time would we have this? I imagine that I just kind of want to get a picture.
There's not a lot of material to be brought in other than the gabion walls and the rock. And so a lot of that will be staged at the initial part of the project in the staging areas. And then most of the traffic will occur from staging to canal and back and forth. So it's not like the levee project where there's just trucks going for months. That's not, we don't anticipate that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. No other questions. I'll open it up for public comment. Are there any requests to speak?
I see nobody waiting to join us.
Close the public comment, bring it back to our trustees, and any more questions or thoughts?
Just
go ahead.
No, just a comment. Thank you, Martha, Madam President. So Greg, thank you and all the team working on this for a while and gathering comments, and appreciated providing all the attachments with the responses back to residents as well, to the agency. So I appreciate all the work on these. I know these are a lot of work and a long process. So again, thanks for that. I noticed that in sort of back to the mitigation measures that are listed, I just want to make sure to the point that my colleagues had brought up, there's notification requirements around residents 2 weeks before. I'm sure they've been notified to do this already, just to participate in the process if they so chose. But again, I just want to make sure that those actually get transplanted into the actual plans, so that proper notice is given. And also, will the reclamation district be the point of contact for any complaints? How will that process work should there be any issues during the construction process? I know it's not the construction hours, the everything else are listed in the mitigation measures, but I'm trying is the reclamation district responsible for responding to those complaints, and what will be, if any, our policy in response to those?
Yeah, generally, when the notices go out, it'll outline a communication process. And so not just the residents, that had, notified us of their concerns, but everybody within, I don't know the exact, mile radius of the project, but everybody within that radius gets notified of the impending work, as well as a communication process on who to contact. And I would anticipate it would be, Blake, for example, is the first point of contact for the district. There may also be a construction project manager that would also be available to answer questions about the project. But that's still to be determined. And if the board has a preference, you're certainly, we would welcome that direction.
No, I don't know. I don't need to be a part of the communication but only to make sure, when the project happened, help me out, Greg, when we did the flood control agency did the project where we brought back in the dirt.
The Barrow Restoration Project.
Yes, thank you. And there was a pretty robust, process around that, where, again, we were coordinating with the city, and we're coordinating with PD if there are any issues with the trucks, as I think that my colleagues were bringing up, and more importantly with the residents around it. So I just want to make sure we kind of take a similar approach here.
Yeah.
Maybe learn from the city and coordinate. And then the other part too was thanking you for, I know there's coordination on the mitigation and notices around with the wildlife agencies, including the Yellow Habitat Conservancy. So thank you for making sure you followed up with them, and I know there was no significant impacts here. I know most of the time people think it's an environmental document, so there must be an impact. And it's a reminder of these documents are meant to make sure we are looking at that and not necessarily do anything about it and mitigate if there's any. So appreciate the work on this, and I'm happy to make a motion, Madam President, if we're ready.
Thank you, Trustee Ledesma. I was also going to say thank you for the extensive amount of work that you all put into to make this happen. I remember seeing a memo a while back about all the different species that are out there, the photographs, and just a level of attention and appreciation for the wildlife that we can't always take care of through the YOLO habitat parameters. But I think the feedback and the response was, well, we're going to do the best we can. And I gather that the neighbors will be attentive and engaged.
Yeah.
Like, so I say they are definitely a vocal group, but we'll stand by you to provide any support we can if needed. Be happy to canvass and meet with people to assure them that we're taking their interest at heart. The main thing is to ensure that the repairs are done to protect housing, and that's and the fact that we got the FEMA grant is huge. Good job on that. Thank you for that. That was amazing, and I know it takes a lot of work, as you know, Greg, on these things here in West Sacramento. So I think that was a miraculous effort on your part. So thank you so much for that. And I'll second. Go ahead.
Yeah, just and as one additional comment, thank you. Yes, thank you for laying it out for the residents, sort of the expectations on that, but also on the water level, which I know we'll hear about too, when the creek or when the canal gets remade. So I think you were pretty honest with them about what that meant. But anyway, with that, I will move the recommended actions. This is 2 items, correct? We're voting on legal. We're voting on 2 items, item 6 and item 7, which also considers the plan.
The project and plans, correct? Yeah.
Are we
Yeah,
voting
so,
on now or separately, Tracy?
You should do them separately.
Okay, so
Okay,
we'll take
thank you.
item 6 first, and then I'll need a second for that.
That's
Echo the
my motion.
I had a second.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. General Manager, can you please call the roll?
Trustee Ledesma,
Aye.
Trustee Orozco,
Aye.
President Guerrero,
Aye. All right, this item is approved. Next is item 7, is consideration of approval of the Black Rock Canal Bank Stabilization Project plans. And Mr. General Manager. Is it you or is it?
I think we still need a motion and a second. And
Oh,
then-
are we just doing?
Yeah, I think it was a
I
joint.
see. So
yeah,
It's a
I-
joint
I-
presentation,
The
yes.
joint presentation. Thank you so much for the
Yes.
clarification.
So I will make a motion on item 7 to move the recommended action.
A second.
Thank you. Mr. General Manager, if you could please call the roll on that.
Trustee Ledesma,
Aye.
Trustee Orozco,
Aye.
President Guerrero.
Aye. All right. This item 7 is approved as well. Next is item 8, consideration of adoption of the Reclamation District 900 fiscal year 2022-2023 operations and maintenance budget. And Mr. Faven, I think you're presenting on that again. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be presenting on that again. So I'm going to bring up a document to share, kind of like so we can all follow along. So if you hold on for a quick minute. And I'll get that up. And then can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
And let me make this a little bit bigger. And see if that's a little better. And then I'm going to look at my notes for the presentation. And so hopefully it doesn't change the screen. Let me know if it does. Did that change on the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that's a bummer. Let me go back to,
It shifted it to the text. So,
yeah. All right, well, let's see how it goes. So I'm going to, as the board knows, you adopted 3 separate budgets for the 21-22 fiscal year. one for RD 900 drainage, one for RD 537 drainage, and one for levy operation and maintenance, or levy maintenance. And the drainage budget also carried all of the O&M expenses, which you can see here on the screen, which are shared. Actually, we're on page 2, so let me go up. So the general overhead administration expenses, the administrative shared costs and labor, and then the idea was the other 2 budgets for the 537 O&M and the levy maintenance would transfer money into the RD 900 budget for their share of these GO&A, general overhead administrative costs. To actually do that requires fund accounting and fund accounting software. District doesn't have that. So we operated, and so the real way it operates is under this sort of class formula. But this really presented a problem for our accountant and staff in being able to, manage the budgets like I'm typically used to doing with the city, and you're probably used to seeing with the city as well, where you have true fund accounting and monies can be moved between these funds, be reserved or whatever. And we really can't do that with the district, nor is there a requirement to do that under the accounting standards. But we did do that through spreadsheet tracking. And so we have been able to account for by labeling all expenditures and revenue by class. And so we actually it did quite well from as being a management tool to track all of these costs, revenues, and expenditures. So I'm going to start with the drainage class and talk a little bit about how it performed during the year. And generally speaking, revenues were in line, that received were in line with what was budgeted. There is a little bit of fluctuation in some of the miscellaneous revenue and the Washington Unified School District maintenance fee. But for the most part, and then also the transfer in costs from 537 and the levy, what we'll call those classes, was a little bit less than what we had anticipated. And that really was just a function of workload. And then as you can see, moving forward in 2023, we're recommending discontinuing those transfers as we're going to roll all of this up into one overall budget. And then from the drainage assessment revenue, which is the lion's share of the revenue for this particular class, the board we're anticipating bringing an item to the board in July to increase that assessment by 2.25%. And that's based on a formula that we've already worked on that clearly supports that recommendation, but that's for a future item next month. And then on the expenditure side, generally speaking, we were a little under budget, especially in the labor and related expenses because of there was no general manager for the majority of the fiscal year, no assistant general manager for the majority of the fiscal year. And so the expenses were quite a bit less than that budgeted. In moving into 22-23, we are recommending to budget at the full amounts that we did last year, adjusted slightly in areas like liability and auto insurance, where we assume, like there is generally speaking every year, that there's going to be an increase. We did realize some efficiencies for assessment management, as was indicated in one of the items approved tonight. So we're able to decrease that over previous fiscal years. And then we're only budgeting the balance on the shared services agreement. So that's gone down quite a bit over last fiscal year. And then we have no rent any longer, so there's some savings there. On medical insurance, we assumed a 4% increase just to give us a little bit of wiggle room in anticipation of health insurance costs going up. And then just to note that the very large expenditure right here, oops, in the training and licensing, on the advice of the CPA, we had to log or account for the expenditures that were used for the GM recruitment somewhere. And this is where we chose to put it, under the GO&A costs. But that won't be there for next year. On the power for the 900 drainage facilities, there's been a significant increase. As you can see, the expenditures that were projected to occur by the end of the fiscal year are a little over $100,000. We only budgeted 80, so there's been a significant increase in electrical and gas charges. So we're budgeting for the next fiscal year essentially at the current actual levels. And then we'll see how things go over the course of the fiscal year. Other than that, pretty much everything is held constant, with the exception of equipment fuel, which, you know, the rising cost of fuel. So we bump that up by about 30%. And then the transfer out to CIP, we're not anticipating transferring them to CIP this year. We already received approval from the board last year for the Blacker Canal project. There's no other CIP projects anticipated this year. In speaking with the general manager, I do believe he plans to put together a capital improvement plan that he will bring, a long-range plan that he'll bring before the board at a future date. And then lastly, I'd say that the transfer out to CIP is a one-time, again, this works under fund accounting, but it doesn't work when you're not using fund accounting. But that's what the board approved last year for this budget to go to feed the Blacker Canal construction and other things. But the expenditures are reflective of primarily the work performed on the Drever Street remodel. So there's really not an apples to apples comparison for a budget of this type for the CIP work. But we're reporting out on the 626,000 under CIP. That was really what was spent last year, primarily, like I said, on the Drever Street remodel. And say overall, we project to end with a balance of about $7.4 million. Is that correct? Excuse me, $6.8 million. And then at the end of the fiscal year, if things hold true, we will end with a balance of about $7.7 million. And do you have any questions before I move on to the 537 budget?
I don't see any questions. Anybody have questions?
I think he answered mine around how we're going to plan for capital improvement projects going forward. So I appreciate Blake kind of nodding your head as Greg said, we're going to have a plan on that next year. So thank you.
And then just to let the board, Trustee Early just joined our, at least I'm attempting to admit her into from the waiting room. Okay. All right, moving on to 537 class. Revenues were right on par with what were budgeted, and that will hold for the next year. We're not anticipating having an assessment increase. When you look at budgeted versus actual or projected, it's significantly less than what was budgeted. A lot of what we have to budget in this fund is for both anticipated expenditures, but also unanticipated expenditures. We didn't have much occur this year. It was a pretty dry winter. We had a few storms, but we had so much capacity in our system that they really didn't tax anything. And we didn't really have any equipment failures or any large maintenance needs. And so this budget really kind of wasn't affected much, certainly by anything unanticipated. And even the power reimbursement, that we expect to get from the city for their share of the pumping costs at the plant was significantly less, just again, because of the limited precipitation this past winter. So again, we're discontinuing the transfer out for the shared costs and no anticipated contribution to CIP, as sort of previously explained on the other budget. So we're going to go ahead and budget at the same levels as last year, and that really is all I have to say about this particular budget. Again, the ending balance, if all goes as planned, the starting balance for the fiscal year will be about $919,000. And if all goes as planned, the fund balance will increase by $40,000, $30,000 or $40,000. And so we'll end in a little bit better place than where we started. But again, that's if all of the anticipated and unanticipated expenditures occur. And if it's a mild winter again, then our ending balance should be much larger. Any questions? Go ahead.
Sounds good. Any questions among the trustees?
I don't have
Trustee
any.
Orozco, do you have a question?
I don't.
Okay. All right. If there are no other questions or comments, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Are you all done? Sorry.
I just have one. Well, I actually have two more slides.
Okay, go ahead.
The levy class, it's in the bottom line here. Revenues and expenditures revenue was a little bit more than expected. And that's, I think we budgeted based on the 90 percentile distribution from WSAFCA as opposed to the complete 100%. The last distribution for all of the assessments, as well as the WSAFCA O&M distribution, which is where this revenue comes from, it occurs like in August, and then it's back booked. And so I think when we prepared the budget last year, it failed to consider that last 10%. This year, we're accounting for it. So we're projecting, the 822. WSAFCA just adopted a 2% increase in their assessment. So we anticipate getting the 839,250 next year from that funding source. And FMAP, this is the part that takes a little bit of explanation. I don't know if it made sense in the staff report. I'll do my best. The FMAP agreements are a fiscal agreement, but it covers work over a calendar year. So the budget that was adopted of $205,100 in FY 21-22 covered calendar year 21. And so when you look at the projected revenue for the fiscal year, it only covered that part of the reimbursement that came for one half of the fiscal year. So this is what was reimbursed by DWR between June and December of 2021. The other reimbursement for from the 205,000 was received in the prior fiscal year, from January to June. And the same thing's going to happen in the 2022-23 fiscal year. We've already approved the agreement with DWR for 350,000, but we're only going to be able to log the reimbursements received from this budget amount between July 1 and December of this year. It's just sort of the way it goes. But as we reported in previous board meetings, we're able to get full reimbursement. We got the 205,100, and we anticipate getting the full reimbursement for 350. It'll just cross over 2 fiscal years. All right. O&M expenses came in quite a bit under what was expected. Again, a lot of that is because a lot of these services either are repair or replacement of equipment that breaks down, and or things that we would otherwise have to spend if FMAP didn't exist. And so because our expenses are offset by FMAP, our expenses are less than budgeted. Again, we anticipate ending the fiscal year with a $2.4 million balance. And if all goes as planned for the next fiscal year, we would end with about $1 million additional reserve. And then let me reduce this a little bit. This is the budget that is before you to adopt for the 22-23 fiscal year. And this rolls up the three budgets from last year into one column here on the far left, the 21-22 budget. So this is the sum of all of the things that I just went over, as well as a sum of all of those projected costs, a sum of the differences, and then a sum of what was being proposed on all of those, the previous slides, if you will. And so it's just a roll up of all of those. And I've had several eyes on this, and the math is good.
Cool.
So I won't rehash all of it, but what you'd be approving for the 22-23 fiscal year is a total revenue of about 3.87 million. Total expenditures, in GO&A of about 304,000. Labor and related, is about a little over $1 million. Again, assumes all positions filled. And then for the facility expenses, just under $500,000. Total expenditures, 1.8 million. And if all goes as planned, then we would have a net increase in fund balance for the entire district of about $2 million. So we would start the fiscal year at about 10.2 million, and we would end the fiscal year at about 12.2 million. So when things that Blake is going to talk to you about a little bit later in the meeting come up with equipment and so forth, just the board should be aware that we have a healthy fund balance to handle those unanticipated costs. And the district has primarily, if not exclusively over the years, worked on a cash basis, not financing vehicles and paying interest, but paying cash up front. They've been able to pay cash for all of the construction projects. They've been very successful at getting grants from FEMA, grants through FMAP, from DWR to help offset costs. And so my assessment is that the district has saved quite a bit of money over the years by not financing improvements and not financing purchases. So that's one of the main reasons why you have such a healthy fund balance. I'll stop talking. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, put it back before the board to consider this budget.
All right, are there any questions among the trustees?
No questions at the moment.
Okay, open it up for public comment.
I'm going to stop sharing now. And
Okay, and no request to speak from public comment. Then I'll close the public comment. Just want to say great job, and want to bring it back to the trustees to provide any feedback.
Oh, just that. I mean, I'm having a hard time. I thank you for saying you had many eyes on this, because it scares me anytime you're saying you're tracking things by spreadsheet. But thank you. I'm sure I know who some of those eyes may be that may be helping you out. So no, very good job. And thank you for kind of tracking it and breaking it out in the classes to help us understand each of those uses. That's helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, same here. I mean, that was very clearly presented and agreed with both of my colleagues. I mean, this was solid, and I appreciate the surplus. And I know, I know our confidence is going to probably change a little bit once we get into the next presentation. But in any case, thank you so much for putting so much work into it and making sure that this was vetted. That's it. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Blake, our new general manager, is already paying off and his good work, showing what he can do.
No, this is Greg. I just ask a lot of questions.
He's being modest. He and our CPA Destin worked on a lot of this while I was on vacation, and I came back and checked the math a little bit and then helped put it into this presentation, but they did a lot of work while I was gone.
It was very helpful to
Yeah.
be able to track all of it. So thank you.
Yeah. Madam Mayor, I'm going to move the recommended, we have to adopt this. We have to move the recommended action.
Okay.
Right, a second.
All right. And Mr. General Manager, please call the roll.
Trustee Ledesma.
Aye. Aye.
Trustee Orozco.
Aye.
Trustee Early.
She got
I don't think
dropped off.
she's any longer.
Yeah, I think she dropped off.
Okay.
And President Guerrero.
Aye. Well, thank you so much. Next item is item number 9 under General Manager update. And who will be presenting that?
That'll be
will
Mr.
go
Blake
ahead and
Johnson.
present this one. Greg got all the good stuff. Now I'm going to bring it down a little bit. First one is our contract with Dumars Accounting expires today. So we will be bringing an item to the board in July to renew that contract. Dustin's been extremely helpful for me as I'm learning the budgets and what's been going on with the district. So I've really appreciated his help along with Greg's. Under operation and maintenance, on July 16th, staff member was mowing the western levee near Lake Washington. Unfortunately, the mower stopped running, did a little hiccup. He tried to start it, and all of a sudden, the tractor was engulfed in flames. It caught on fire, caught the levee berm on fire, complete loss of equipment, tractor and mower. We do have insurance on the equipment in the neighborhood of $190,000 plus or minus. The new equipment runs somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000. So we will be looking at acquiring a new tractor using Caltrans rates and Caltrans contracts. So over the next month or two, we plan to get a bid and bring that before the board. Unfortunately, we don't know what started the fire. It happened so quick. The grasses were so dry, it caught everything on fire, and fire department did have to come out and help extinguish that fire. Nobody was hurt, and that's the good news. So just the loss of equipment. Yeah. So anyway,
Can I ask?
questions? Yes.
Yes, thank you. I was looking at this and I was confused. It looks like the mower started on fire, but the tractor went down too?
Yeah, actually it was the tractor that caught fire, and the mower is attached to the tractor. So everything, both pieces went up. We're waiting for the final insurance claim. They came out to inspect it. The tractor's still out in the field at this point.
Is this a product liability issue?
I think it's going to be a tough one to figure out if it was equipment malfunction, if it was a leaking hydraulic hose, if it was a backfire. It happened so quick. I guess we can ask our insurance company what they feel the issue was on this. We've got another a tractor mower, same equipment. We haven't had any problems with it. It is a little newer than this one that burned up, but we can work with our insurance company to see if it was a equipment malfunction.
Well, it seems kind of like, these kinds of things don't just blow up. And then, could you imagine if I don't know how extensive the burn damage was, but that, especially during wildfire season, that could have been extraordinary.
It definitely, and the location of this. I met with staff afterwards to discuss critical areas and maybe practices change a little bit, where we have somebody out mowing and another staff member with the water truck nearby for areas near commercial or residential areas that if a fire were to start, because unfortunately during mowing, fires do start. There's rocks on the ground. Our mowers hit a rock, a spark, and it happens, and it happens all the time. And so we're just trying to be recognize that, and safety comes first for
Right.
safety, personal, and equipment and land.
Yeah, I appreciate that, looking over our practices. I mean, I don't know that I'm not suggesting it's user error in any way, but we have to start accommodating for freak situations like this. I also wonder, does that mean our insurance fees go up because we're making a claim? I don't know if you have the answer to that, but I mean, if this is a product issue, I'd hate to be penalized, because not only do we have to cover a new piece of equipment at an additional cost, but we might be paying out a lot more with insurance thereafter, which, that offends me, especially if it's not by our fault, but rather our trust in a piece of equipment that I'm sure has been properly maintained. But with that, I mean, I just want to put that out there so we can make those inquiries. And you know what? I failed, and Blake, you're not going to know this probably answer, but since I have Greg on here, we were just talking about insurance in the budget, and I failed to ask at the time. So I was waiting until the end of the presentation and then forgot. Have we had any increases to our insurance premiums with respect to our vehicles in the last, say, 1 to 2 years?
No, we didn't. And in fact, our insurance actually went down a little bit because we haven't replaced that one vehicle yet. We received the check. We did not get an increase in insurance following that issue. And our overall insurance for that category actually went down because we're insuring less equipment and vehicles. So.
Oh, okay. All right. That's all I have. Thank you for answering.
Any additional questions regarding our equipment?
No.
Okay. Projects, the RD900 office. Over the winter, there were several leaks in the roof. We've got staining on the ceiling, water spots on the floor in the garage area, down the walls. And so I had called 2 contractors to come out to take a look at it, kind of give us a rough idea of the roof issue. Both of them came to the same conclusion that the roof over the office portion does need to be replaced. So that rough number is $200,000. One of the companies that came out, they don't do government work. They're not equipped to deal with government paperwork. The other company is. So rough number was about 200,000, but of course that's without dry rot issues. And once roof starts to leak, you typically get dry rot, and the underlayment does need to be replaced, or some of it at least. So we won't know what that full cost is until they pull the roof apart and take a look at it. The roof over the office is a flat roof. So unfortunately, they do have a tendency to leak. Most of the new products available for roofing, they give you about a 20-year warranty on them nowadays. So the product's gotten better, and it's a rubberized roofing system. So that's something we do need to get out again and get constructed prior to winter hitting.
Like, how many square feet is the roof?
Approximately 3,000 square feet for the office. For the office, I believe is roughly 3,000 square feet. There's additional work that needs to be done on the garage portion, but it doesn't need to be completely replaced.
Do you think that 200,000 is commensurate for that square footage? That's a decent price.
Unfortunately, I don't know commercial sites. I know housing sites. I had my own roof replaced, and similar square footage. So I don't know the comparison. Both contractors came back with approximately the same number. So I'm assuming that is close to the going rate. So did not let them know what each other had in mind, but that they both came back roughly that number. I elevated the number a little bit, but rounded up to 200,000. But like I said, the dry rot issue is a concern for me, just knowing once a roof leaks, you're going to get dry rot in the wood. So
With respect to the RFPs, do you know if there are any local businesses that do commercial roofing that we can encourage to apply?
when I looked online, I think the most local was in Sacramento. I did not find anybody local to West Sacramento. I will continue to look a little further, but one was local Sacramento, close to West Sacramento. The other contractor I called was actually the contractor that roofed my house. I trusted him and wanted a good quote or good estimate on it. And so I can continue to look within West Sacramento.
It might be nice. I mean, we got our roof replaced. Again, it's residential, so it's completely different. I don't know if they have capacity, but there was several estimates that we'd received from folks in the area. One of whom was Javi's Roofing. And I think I've seen the business in West Sacramento being advertised quite a bit, but again, I have no idea if it's a commercial,
Sure.
But for me, I can only speak for myself, but I can imagine that my colleagues would probably, not probably think similarly. I mean, it'd be great if we could find some place in West Sac that did it, but if not, then obviously you just put the RFPs out there. So
Yeah, we
I
might
will
check with
look.
the Chamber of Commerce to see if they know if there's any.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that as well.
yeah,
We'll definitely do that. I think,
So
again, because we're a government agency, we can let the locals know that with this project's coming out, but when all's said and done, if they meet the requirements and are the low bid, that's the winner.
Yeah.
So, but we'll definitely get it
Yeah,
out to West Sacramento.
Yeah, do we have it? This is a relatively, for us, new building. And I'm just kind of curious, looking back at any inspections that were done prior to purchase of this building. I know it was done by the previous board, so I would ask that maybe if there's any evidence of that sort of, we haven't, I was just thinking about why didn't it show us last winter, but there wasn't much rain last winter. So, again, just something that I think we should poke into a little bit. If there even was this, I mean, we didn't have this much rain this season. So it's just really kind of surprising to me that we have this issue.
Yeah, I've been looking through the office, our office files to see. This is hearsay. I've been told that somebody did a roof report and said the roof was fine, but I have not been able to find any of that in the files. And whether that is true or not, I couldn't say. One of the things we could do is talk with the real estate agent that we bought it from to see if they have copies of roofing reports. And again, dig through it to see if there was something noted in the.
And Blake, I think we can also check with the architect. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the firm that did the design.
Comstock.
Yeah, Comstock, and they may even have in their possession because as the board probably knows, this was not part of the Drever Street remodel. Had we known, or I'm sure at the general manager at the time known that the roof was either at the end of its life or known to be leaking, that could have easily been part of that whole project.
I went through the.
It leads me to other. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just, if it's something you can follow up offline with,
Definitely.
And just I think this does bear a little bit of digging into around kind of ensuring that there was some report done, that we have some evidence of it prior to, because it's just okay. I'll leave it at that.
Like I said, typically, we buy a house, we have an inspection done, and you get a pretty big report. So that's what I was expecting to see, and I have not been able to find that yet. So
Thanks,
next on the office items, landscaping. No landscaping has been performed around the office. The landscaping we did was we knocked down the 3-foot grass and sprayed it with Roundup, so everything's dead and not growing at this point. But I did speak with the landscape architect I know, and he gave me a rough estimate for design construction drawings of about $7,000 to work up a plan for us, and then we would hand it to a landscaper to construct. So again, what I need to do is take this out to an RFP for both pieces for the design, and once the design is complete, for construction of the landscape. So I think, of course, we definitely look for drought resistant plantings and low water needs. And where the building's located, we've had some issues with homeless issues. And so we've got to be careful with our water supply, electrical, and so on. Everything's got to be locked up. That was not in the budget for the contractor that did the updating to the office. I did go back and look at that. The architect that prepared the updated plans had a line item for landscaping, but it was removed for construction. So there was no landscaping plan at this point. And very similar with office signage. We have nothing on the building that indicates this is RD 900. The architect had designed a signage for the front of the building, and that was not included either. And so if the board so chooses, we can get bids, send out an RFP for the design and installation of an RD 900 sign. So for those of you that saw the layout and the design of the signage, it looked pretty nice, but I don't have any idea of what the cost would be for some of that signage. All right, any questions regarding the office?
I just wanted to comment. I just appreciate, at least trying to get some estimates, so we have a ballpark figure on the cost. And if it comes higher or lower, we'll be at least informed before the RFP is approved, correct? And then is there, I wonder, in the city, we have like a threshold on what the city manager can approve without having to come back to us, like 7,000 and things like that, maybe, meet that threshold. Do we have anything like that?
There is a sort of a blanket approval for the general manager in case of emergency, but I don't believe that extends to signatory authority for routine things. But if that's something that the board is interested in doing, a $25,000 limit, a $10,000 limit, something like that, we can certainly, Blake, I can assist Blake, maybe a small workshop with the board or something, and that can always be adopted and added into the budget or so, or just some authority granted to him so that for nickel and dime items, which I kind of think where you're going to, we don't have to always be so formal or always bring things back to the board, but that would be up to the board's direction, and we'd be happy to bring an item back to discuss at a future date if you'd like.
Yeah, I saw this too. Can you hear me okay, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wondered the same thing about this. I know at the period that this new board was installed in the transition, that was one of the things that I was actually starting to work with the prior assistant GM on building, and then the pandemic hit. And nothing really became of that. But it should be something we have.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think even when I worked with the county, we had a $25,000 threshold. We did get phone bids. We would get 3 phone bids, but we wouldn't send out a formal RFP just so you'd have something to compare against, and then we can award a contract. So it definitely has been done, and we could definitely look into it.
And Madam President, I'm sorry, I do need to drop. That's okay. I know we're at workshop.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything that we need to approve. So should we wrap it up really quick so that, because we can't continue as a subcommittee.
I'll hold on for another minute or two if there's something quick to
Okay,
hold on.
thanks.
I'll go real
Okay,
quick.
like,
The only other item is our coordination with the city of West Sac. I'd actually gone through some previous board meetings. The Bridgeway Lakes project, trying to get water from our main canal into the lake. We've worked out a potential solution. The city is going to actually place riprap in the canal to force water into Bridgeway Lakes. They've got a well running now, but it just runs, through the canal out to our main pump station. So basically, we'll dam up the main canal and force water towards Bridgeway Lakes and do it that way. So the height of the dam is only about 4.5 feet. So in any kind of an emergency, water will spill over the top of it, not cause any problems, with the anticipation of completely removing the riprap in October before the rains hit. So we're trying to help them out with that to get water into Bridgeway Lakes. So that ends my update.
All right. Are there any questions, comments? Open it up for public comment. No request, close it. And then we have to approve anything here? Are we okay with just yep, go ahead and go?
No,
Okay.
we don't.
Just go ahead and go.
Okay, just go ahead and go. Next is trustee comments. None? I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Okay. It might be an item just for future discussion. It doesn't even need to be in the next meeting, but I wonder if maybe now that we have some new members to the board, we could potentially consider maybe brainstorming another date and time to meet. I'm not sure if Thursday in the evening really works for everyone. I wasn't at the meeting at the time we discussed this, but if the answer is no, then that's fine too. I just wanted to see if there would be another time that we could potentially find that might be more amenable to all of our schedules.
If that's the, again, I'll leave it to the president and the GM to discuss, maybe working with
Yes.
the individual board members to see if there's a better time. I'm fluid with whatever, but I want to make sure the time can meet all the other board members. This does seem to be a hard time, but so we can leave it with you, Madam President, and the GM
Yes,
to
you
work
can.
on
I
it.
think yes, but the general manager can connect with the trustees and get some dates, some timeframes.
I will reach out to
Thank
each
you.
one of you and see what we can find.
Awesome. All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
for
I'll
me.
accept
you.
the adjourn.
Okay.
I'll make a
move.
motion to adjourn. Oh, I'll second.
All right, Mr. General Manager.
Trustee Ledesma,
Aye.
Trustee Orozco,
Hi.
President Ferreira.
Aye, and we just want to note that there were 2 absentees here in the minutes. Trustee Alcala and Trustee Early. Thank you. All right, we are adjourned.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.